This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, welcome everyone. Shalom Aleichem. Baruch Haba. We continue in the Iggeres HaGra. We mentioned yesterday the Gra set sail to reach Eretz Yisrael, and ultimately he was not successful in making it. He says, Min HaShamayim, they did not allow him to to come to Eretz Yisrael. And the Gra writes in the beginning that he got guarantees from his mother that she would allow him to go and she would not be distressed and pained by his trip. Now, Rabbi Cheskel Sarna, in his footnotes on the Iggeres HaGra, discusses why did the Gra have to get this havtacha from his mother to go to Eretz Yisrael. This seems to imply that if his mother would not have allowed him to go to Eretz Yisrael, he would not have. Now, there's a big shaila in halacha: is one allowed to go to Eretz Yisrael if their parents don't allow them? In other words, let's say somebody has an aged father or mother, or even not an aged father or mother, and they break the news, Papa, Mama, Tati, Mami, I want to move to Eretz Yisrael, and they say no. Are you allowed to go? In other words, well, you say I want to go, there's a mitzvah to live in Eretz Yisrael. They say, what about the mitzvah to listen to me? I need you to bring me chicken soup every night. So there's a shaila in halacha whether going to Eretz Yisrael trumps kibbud avayim. So the fact that the Gra got a havtacha from his mother, that seems to imply, had his mother not allowed, and perhaps he would not have gone to Eretz Yisrael. However, Rav Goldberg, in his commentary to the Iggeres HaGra, he points out that this is not muchroch at all. In other words, this is not definitely a proof that the mitzvah of kibbud avayim trumps living in Eretz Yisrael, and that's because he knew his mother would be pained, and he got this havtacha to sort of ensure his mother would not be distressed. So the Gra opens up by saying and asking his family, please do not be distressed about my absence. And he says on the third line, V'gam ma tidagu, and also why should you worry? Hine anoshim noisim al kama shanim mishvel mamain. People travel for many years for money. By the way, this was written in the advent of the time when people used to go for the first time to America to make money. This is, we're talking the end of the 18th century. So people had first started going to America, and people would go for years and just to amass money. Menichim nishoseim, they would leave over their wives, uvaneim, and their children. V'gamhim navanod b'choyser kol, and in their travels, they would be wandering from one place to another without any provisions, without any food, without any lodging. So says the Gra, why are you worried about me? It was common practice back in the day. People would travel away for years to make a buck. V'ani toidulak, and I thank the Lord, noisea la'aretz hakdosha, I'm traveling to the Holy Land, shahakol mitzapim l'roisa. Everybody yearns to see Eretz Yisrael. Now the Gra, interestingly, we pointed out, does not speak about the mitzvah to live in Eretz Yisrael, presumably because the Gra, in his personal shita, held that Bizman Hazeh maybe there is not a mitzvah. However, the Gra does, in his writings, emphasize the importance of merely looking at Eretz Yisrael. Now, what is gained by looking at Eretz Yisrael? The Gra cites a Zohar HaKadosh in Parshas Balak, that if you want to understand Torah, and you want to comprehend Torah, merely looking at the land, seeing the feature, seeing the topography of the land of Israel, gives a person a deeper understanding, a deeper awareness of Torah. And therefore the Gra says Eretz Yisrael is a place that everybody yearns to see. Chemdas Kol Yisrael, it is the desire of all of Israel. V'chemdas Hashem Yisbarach, and it's the desire of God, Baruch Hu. Kol Ho'elyonim, all the upper worlds, v'hatachtoinim, and the lower worlds, everyone on high, the Malachi Ashares, the angels, everyone down here, Trukasam Elah, yearns for Israel, has a desire for Eretz Yisrael. And I'm in a very comfortable situation. V'ani noiseh b'shalom baruch Hashem. Blessed the Lord, I'm traveling safely. And then the Gra says something which is very hard to understand. Says the Gaon, V'gam at, and also you, Nevas Beisi, my wife. The Gra is addressing his wife. Yoidas shehinachti yoladai. You know that I left my children. Shalibi hoima aleim. My heart yearns for them. Now the Gra was a man of halacha. The Gra was one of the most concise writers of all time. And yet over here he's writing poetically. And he's telling his wife, you know that I left the kids and my heart moans for them and yearns for them. V'chol sifri ha'yikarim. I left all of my precious svarim. You could just imagine how dear and beloved the Gra Sfarim were to him. One time the story goes that Rav Baruch Bar Leibowitz, one time there was a decree that he had to leave his city and he was going to have to leave all of his Sfarim behind. So to speak, he had to take a few moments to take leave of his Sfarim, to take leave of the Rajba, to take leave of the Ktsois, and he couldn't do it. He couldn't bring himself to do it, so two of his Chaverim came and, so to speak, had to force Rav Baruch Bar out. But you could imagine what was dear to the Gra, besides his family, besides his children, his Sfarim. And not only that, his house itself. Because Chazal tell us that if a person acts properly in their home, la'achar mea v'esrim shana, their home will testify to their righteousness and their good standing and their good behavior. And especially the Gra would basically never leave his home. The Gra would learn all day long by candlelight, and he would close the shutters so he should not be disturbed by the outside world. So you can imagine the kedusha and the sanctity of the home of the Vilna Gaon. So the Gra says to his wife, you know I left my children, you know I left my svarim, you know I left my home, v'hayisi keger b'yaretz acheres, I'm like a stranger in another land, v'hinachti hakoil, and I left everything. Now, what's the Gra saying? What's his point? We know that he left everything. So Rav Goldberg explains that the Gra is adding, don't be pained for me, don't be worried about me, don't feel bad for me. Clearly, if somebody leaves something that is so precious and dear to them, they obviously have a very important mission to take care of. Otherwise, they never would have left their family, their svarim, their home. The Gra is saying, think about everything I left behind and realize that if I'm leaving, it must be for some magnificent and monumental purpose. So that's what he's saying to his wife. Don't be upset, don't be sad that I'm leaving. Obviously, it's for a major reason. Now, here's a very important question. Why, in fact, did the Gra leave his children behind? I mean, what about chinuch habanim? Who's going to teach the Gra's children Torah? Who's going to take care of the kids? I mean, the Gra is saying, oh, you know, my dear wife, that I left the kids behind, so why'd he do it? So, the Rav Michal Yehuda Lefkowitz wrote a perush on the Iggeres HaGra, and he asked this question, how in fact was the Gra allowed to leave his family and his children behind? And he says as follows, you have to say, that the Gra was confident that his wife would be mechanech the children just as well. Now, he must have had some wife, because you could imagine what kind of job the Gra could have done on the kids, and the Gra was confident that his wife would do a super job. Now, but what the Gra would be missing would be, he himself would be missing the personal fulfillment of the mitzvah of chinuch. On the other hand, the Gra must have held, says Rabbi Yehuda Lefkowitz, that the mitzvah of living in Eretz Yisrael trumps and is more important than personally fulfilling the mitzvah of chinuch. Now, I would assume in most cases, if somebody would leave their home and leave the job to their wife, I would assume in most homes the children would suffer greatly, and in that case one would not be able to leave their family and go to Eretz Yisrael. But in the situation of the Gra, he must have felt that the job his wife would have done would have been equally good. And under the circumstances, the spiritual elevation the Gra feels that he would have gotten from being in Eretz Yisrael would be even more important than personally fulfilling the chinuch of his children. So says the Gra, he says, I want to tell you, my dear family, that everything in this world, all money, all physical pleasures, is hevel havolim, is empty, is nothing. V'yadua ki kol ha'olam hazeh hakol hevel. It is known this whole world, it's all frivolity, it's all empty. V'chol hashashuim, and all delights, hakoil koloi hayu, it's all as if it never existed. It's all worthless. V'oy laharoidfim achar hahevel ein boi mayel. Woe to those who run after emptiness, for that which does not help at all. Says the Gra, you go to somebody, you're driving down the street and you say, oh, look at that big mansion, look at that big house. That person really has it good. Look at that car that person is driving. That person really has the good life. Says the Gra, what a foolish thing to say. It's not even logical. You know why? Don't be jealous of someone else's money, because very often the money that they have and the pleasures that they have is a punishment for them. It's making their life miserable. Very often somebody has a lot of assets and it's really bringing them down. It's really destroying their life. So says the Gra, V'al tekani ba'oishar. Don't be jealous of someone else's money. Now this includes all physical qualities. Ki yesh oishar shamor levalav l'ra'aseh. There is sometimes wealth which God preserves to its owner for their detriment. So here you think, oh, this guy, he has such a good life, he's driving a fancy car. That's because he's wasting his entire life because he has to get special gas for the car. And anytime something breaks, he can't just go to a regular parts store. He has to go to the dealership. So this guy wastes half of his life, taking care of his vehicle. So the Gra says what a mistake it is to be jealous of somebody's physical assets. We'll continue in this tomorrow. Everyone's invited tonight, 9:15, Daf HaShavua. Tomorrow morning, Chumash Shir 10:30, and again tomorrow night 8:30, And just want to remind everyone, you could catch this year now on TorahAnytime.com and on podcast. Be'ezus Hashem, this coming Thursday evening at 9:30, there's a new venue, a live stream event on Shas Illuminated, questions and answers on any subject. Can't promise I know the answers, but at least that's what it's advertised. If anyone has any interesting questions that want to be discussed, you could send it over. And wishing everyone a great night. Sleep well. Bracha v'atzlacha. Kol tov.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.